Cold CEO meets simple girl selling her virginity to save her mother. Hello, fam. Mr. T here. Welcome to another heart-gripping adventure. During the course of the creation of this story, I spent 70-plus hours reviewing and researching information and manuscripts to craft this story. Every detail from this story comes from real-life experiences I documented. This isn't fiction fabricated from thin air. It's the result of digging into painful realities that many face in silence. If you're moved by this story, a subscription is a fair exchange of months of work behind these words. Let's proceed. The blue light of the laptop screen illuminated Alina Moreno's tear-stained face as the clock on her nightstand blinked 12:03 a.m. Her fingers trembled over the keyboard, hesitating as she stared at the website header. Elite arrangements, where desires meet discretion. The cursor hovered over the Create New Listing button as her stomach twisted into knots. Scattered across her small desk lay a mountain of medical bills, each one marked with bright red stamps. Final notice, payment overdue, service termination. The largest bill from Memorial Heights Hospital displayed a number so large it might as well have been written in another language. $175,000. Just one night, Alina whispered to herself, her voice barely audible in the cramped bedroom of their modest apartment. Through the thin walls, she could hear her mother's labored breathing, each rasp a painful reminder of the cancer eating away at her body, each breath a clock ticking down. Across town, in the glittering skyline of the financial district, Victor Laurent stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, tumbler of 20-year-old whiskey in hand. The amber liquid caught the city lights as he took a slow sip, his expression unchanged as the bedroom door opened behind him. "Your driver is waiting downstairs," he said without turning, his voice as cold as the ice in his glass. A woman appeared in the reflection of the window, hastily buttoning her blouse, her makeup smudged. "You could at least look at me when you dismiss me, Victor." He turned, his steel gray eyes devoid of emotion. "I believe our arrangement was clear. One night." His gaze flicked to the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, which ended 20 minutes ago. She grabbed her purse, dignity crumbling beneath his indifferent stare. "You're exactly what they say you are. Cold. Empty." Victor didn't flinch as the door slammed behind her. At 35, he'd built Laurent Technologies into a billion-dollar empire through calculated decisions and emotional detachment. He finished his whiskey in one swallow and set the glass down on his desk. His laptop was already open. Without conscious thought, his fingers navigated to a bookmark rarely visited but never deleted. The Elite Arrangements logo appeared on screen, promising discretion for the wealthy and powerful. Victor's expression remained neutral as he scrolled through the listings, clinical in his assessment of each offering. Meanwhile, Alina wiped away tears with the back of her hand, determination hardening her resolve. She pulled up the hospital's letter again, the words burning into her vision. "Without immediate treatment, we estimate Mrs. Moreno has less than 3 months. 3 months. 90 days. Not enough time to save her mother through honest work at the diner and the convenience store. Not with her brother Mateo's recent troubles draining what little savings they had. I'm sorry, Mama," she whispered, clicking the Create New Listing button. The form expanded on her screen, demanding details she never imagined sharing with strangers. Age, 22. Physical description: 5 feet 4 inches, 118 pounds, long brown hair, olive skin. Experience, none. Her fingers froze over the keyboard when she reached minimum bid. What was her body worth? What price would save her mother's life? With shaking hands, she typed. Listing title: 22-year-old virgin. One night only. Minimum bid: $200,000. Description: I offer what can only be given once. My circumstances are desperate. Starting bid: enough to save a life. Alina's finger hovered over the submit button as fresh tears blurred her vision. The cursor seemed to pulse with the beat of her heart, each throb a question. Could you really do this? Is there no other way? Forgive me, Mama, she whispered. pressing down on the mouse. The screen flashed confirmation, her listing now live among dozens of others. Her innocence now had a price tag. At that exact moment, Victor refreshed a page in his penthouse, his expression unchanging as new listings populated the screen. His eyes narrowed as the most recent entry appeared at the top. 22-year-old virgin. 1 night only. Something in the desperate simplicity of the description caught his attention. Victor Laurent, who had everything and felt nothing, leaned forward in his chair, studying the profile with unexpected interest. Have you ever wondered what you would sacrifice for someone you love? The line between desperation and devotion isn't always clear. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next in this twisted tale of desperation and desire. Would you cross your own boundaries to save someone you love? Type sacrifice in the comments if you understand Alina's impossible choice. Morning sunlight streamed to the faded curtains as Alina moved quietly through the small apartment. In the kitchen, she prepared her mother's medication, a routine she perfected over the past 8 months since the diagnosis. The apartment walls, though thin and cracked in places, held 17 years of memories. 17 years since Eduardo Moreno had walked out the front door, leaving nothing but empty promises and a family photo with his face torn out. "You're up early," Rosa Moreno said weakly from the doorway, leaning against a frame. Despite the illness ravaging her body, her eyes remained bright, a mirror of Alina's own. "Mama, you should be resting." Alina guided her mother to a chair, noting how the bones in her arms felt like twigs beneath her fingertips. "I've rested enough to last several lifetimes," Rosa said, attempting a smile. "Any word from Mateo?" Alina bit her lip. Her 19-year-old brother had been absent for 3 days. Again. "He'll be home soon," she lied, placing a cup of tea in front of her mother. The truth was far more complicated. Mateo's path had veered toward the neighborhood gang after their father left. His recent disappearance coincided with $3,000 missing from their savings, money Alina had been setting aside for Rosa's treatment. You should be living your own life," Rosa said, reaching for Alina's hand. "Not taking care of an old woman and chasing after your brother. You're only 45, Mama. Hardly old." Alina forced brightness into her voice, hiding the notification that had appeared on her phone. A message from Elite Arrangements confirming her profile activation. Rosa coughed, a rattling sound that shook her entire frame. Alina quickly grabbed tissues, pretending not to notice the flecks of blood. The memory of last night's decision sat like a stone in her stomach. Across town, Victor Lawrence Day had already been in motion for hours. He stood at the head of a gleaming conference table, surrounded by executives who seemed to shrink under his gaze. "The Morris acquisition is underperforming by 17%, Victor stated flatly, swiping through data on the tablet before him. "Explain." Marcus Jenkins, the acquisition lead, fumbled with his presentation notes. "Sir, we encountered unexpected resistance from their development team and the market conditions. The market conditions were factored into our initial assessment." Victor cut him off. What wasn't factored in was incompetence. Silence fell over the room. No one dared to speak. "You have 48 hours to correct course, or we'll find someone who can." Victor closed his tablet. Meeting adjourned. The room emptied quickly, leaving Victor alone with his assistant Diane, who had been with him for 7 years, the only person who had lasted in his inner circle. "Your 10 a.m. canceled," Diane said, not looking up from her tablet, and Ms. Winters called again. "Delete both from the calendar," Victor replied, his eyes already on his next task. "She said it was important." Diane's voice carried a hint of judgment. Victor looked up, his expression hardening. "Nothing about Claudia Winters is important." Diane nodded, knowing better than to press further. "The charity gala is tonight. Black tie starts at 8. Victor nodded dismissively. The Laurent Foundation's annual gala was a necessary performance, a public display of generosity that helped soften his cutthroat business reputation. Every donation, every handshake, Every smile was calculated for maximum benefit to Loron Technologies. As Diane left, Victor stood alone in the vast conference room. Sunlight glinted off the skyscrapers outside, reflecting his empire. An empire built on brilliant decisions and brutal efficiency. An empire that felt increasingly hollow. Alina's hands trembled as she applied mascara, a luxury she rarely indulged in. The Elite Arrangements website had messaged her with instructions. She was to attend a private viewing event that evening where potential bidders could meet candidates in person before placing their offers online. Just a meeting, she whispered to her reflection. Nothing happens tonight. The dress she wore belonged to her friend Carmen, who believed Alina was interviewing for a hostess position at an upscale restaurant. The black fabric hugged her curves in ways that made her both uncomfortable and oddly powerful. Her phone lit up with a message from the hospital. Payment plan proposal denied. Service continuation requires immediate minimum payment of $50,000. Alina closed her eyes, steadying herself against the bathroom sink. The listing had been active for less than 24 hours, and already 3 bids had come in. The highest stood at $210,000. Enough to buy her mother time, enough to start the treatment that might save her life. The cost was merely herself. Have you ever faced an impossible choice? When all your options feel wrong, but doing nothing feels worse. Comment sacrifice if you would do anything for the person you love most. What line wouldn't you cross? The Loron Foundation Gala buzzed with Manhattan's elite. Politicians, celebrities, and business moguls mingling beneath crystal chandeliers. Victor navigated the crowd with practiced ease, offering perfectly timed smiles and firm handshakes that never reached his eyes. Loron, magnificent event, bellowed Richard Townsend, CEO of Townsend Media, though I expected nothing less. Victor clinked glasses with his sometimes ally, sometimes competitor. Richard, glad you could attend. Wouldn't miss it, especially with such interesting entertainment planned for later. Victor raised an eyebrow. I wasn't aware we had entertainment beyond the string quartet. Richard leaned in, lowering his voice. Not here. After. A few of us are attending a viewing at Elite. Thought you might be interested. Elite. Victor maintained his neutral expression, recognizing the name immediately from his late-night browsing. Exclusive guest list, Richard continued, mistaking Victor's silence for confusion. High-end companionship auctions. Very discreet, very exclusive. I'm familiar, Victor replied coolly. There's supposedly a virgin on the block tonight, starting at $200,000. Richard chuckled, sipping his champagne. The desperation of some people. Though I might place a bid myself. Victor felt a flicker of distaste, both at Richard's crudeness and his own recognition of the listing. Business calls, Richard. Enjoy your evening. As he moved away, Victor found himself uncharacteristically distracted. The desperate listing from last night, a young woman selling something irreplaceable for some that to him was barely a rounding error in his quarterly reports. Mr. Loron? Diane appeared at his side. Your speech is in 5 minutes. Victor nodded, straightening his custom Tom Ford tuxedo. He would deliver a perfectly crafted speech about community responsibility and the Loron commitment to giving back. The audience would applaud, checks would be written, and his public image would receive its quarterly polish. Yet as he approached the podium, the thought of the young woman's listing lingered. Starting bid, enough to save a life. Those words contained more raw humanity than anything he would say tonight. Alina sat rigid in the back of the luxury sedan sent to collect her. The driver, instructed not to speak to her, navigated through unfamiliar wealthy neighborhoods. Through the tinted windows, she glimpsed mansions and penthouses, worlds apart from the cramped 2-bedroom apartment where her mother now slept, unaware of where her daughter was going. Her phone chimed with a text from Mateo, coming home tomorrow, sorry for everything. Tears threatened to ruin her careful makeup. Her brother, despite his flaws, was still the little boy who had cried on her shoulder when her father left, who had promised to take care of them both when he grew up. The car slowed before a discreet townhouse in the Upper East Side, no different from its neighbors except for the suited security guard at the entrance. Alina's heart hammered against her ribs as the car door opened. "Ms. Moreno," the guard said, checking a tablet. "You're expected inside. Follow the attendant." A young woman in a black cocktail dress led Alina through a foyer of marble and gold into an elevator that whispered upward to the penthouse level. With each floor, Alina felt herself rising further from the life she knew, ascending into a world where bodies had price tags and desperation was commodity. The elevator doors opened to reveal a gathering that resembled a high-end cocktail party more than the seedy auction she had feared. Well-dressed men and a few women mingled, drinking champagne and speaking in hushed tones. Around the edges of the room, young women in evening wear stood or sat alone, each with a small numbered pin on their dress. The attendant handed Alina a pin, number 22, and whispered, "Circulate. Speak with potential bidders. The more interest you generate, the higher the final bid." Alina pinned the number to her dress with shaking fingers, feeling less human with each passing second. Across the city, Victor Laurent stepped away from the gala's closing reception, his charity obligation fulfilled. He stood on the balcony, Manhattan spread before him like a glittering carpet. His phone displayed the Elite Arrangements app, the listing for 22-year-old virgin, now updated with a venue and time. Without fully understanding his own motivation, Victor sent his driver a message. "Change of plans. Take me to 721 East 70th Street." As his car pulled away from the gala, Victor told himself he was merely curious, a businessman investigating an unusual transaction. Yet something deeper pulled him toward the townhouse, toward a desperate young woman whose single night was worth a life. The townhouse loomed before Victor as his driver pulled to stop at the curb. Through the tinted windows, he observed men in tailored suits entering discreetly, each greeted with quiet deference by the security personnel. He straightened his bow tie, still dressed in his gala attire, and stepped out into the cool night air. "Wait here," he instructed his driver. "I won't be long." The guard recognized him immediately. "Mr. Laurent, we weren't expecting you tonight." "Last-minute decision," Victor replied coolly, offering no further explanation as he was ushered inside. The interior was exactly as he expected. Tasteful luxury designed to make wealthy men comfortable with their indulgences. Crystal decanters of aged liquor caught the light from muted chandeliers. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. The entire setup was crafted to legitimize transactions that, at their core, remained primal and transactional. A hostess approached with practiced grace. "Mr. Laurent, what an unexpected pleasure. Would you like to view our catalog?" "I'm merely observing tonight," he replied, accepting a glass of whiskey from a passing server. Victor moved through the room with calculated indifference, noting familiar faces from finance, tech, and politics, men who would shake his hand in boardrooms tomorrow while hiding tonight's activities behind non-disclosure agreements and fake names. His attention landed on a young woman standing alone by the window. Unlike the others who circulated with practiced charm, she remained still, her posture revealing discomfort beneath a brave facade. The small pin on her dress caught the light. Number 22. Something tugged at Victor's memory. The listing. 22-year-old virgin. One night only. This was her, the woman whose desperate words had drawn him here. He studied her from across the room, noting the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers twisted the fabric of her dress when she thought no one was watching. Without conscious decision, Victor found himself moving toward her. He stopped several feet away, watching as she gazed out at the city lights, clearly seeing something beyond the glittering skyline. "First time here?" he asked, startling her from her thoughts. Alina turned, meeting the eyes of the most striking man she'd ever seen. Tall and imposing in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, with steel gray eyes that seemed to read every thought crossing her mind. "Is it that obvious?" she asked, attempting a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You don't belong here," Victor stated, not unkindly. Her facade cracked slightly. "No, I don't. But necessity doesn't care about belonging." The raw honesty in her reply caught him off guard. In his world of corporate manipulation and strategic half-truths, such directness was rare. What necessity brings a young woman to sell something irreplaceable? The question escaped before he could contain it. Alina held his gaze, her brown eyes clear and unflinching. "My mother is dying. The treatment that could save her costs more than I could earn in 10 years. Victor felt something shift within him, a sensation so foreign he nearly recoiled from it. Empathy, not the manufactured kind he displayed at charity galas, but something authentic and uncomfortable. "Victor Laurent," a voice interrupted, smooth as oil and just as slick. "I thought you considered yourself above these entertainments." Victor turned to face Lucas Varela, once his business partner, now his most determined rival. Younger than Victor by 5 years, Lucas had built Varela Industries by poaching Laurent Technologies' clients and exploiting every perceived weakness. "Lucas," Victor acknowledged coldly, "I didn't realize you frequented these events." Lucas smiled, his attention sliding to Alina with undisguised interest. "I'm a man of varied appetites, and tonight's offerings are particularly appealing." He extended his hand to Alina. "Lucas Varela, my dear, perhaps you've heard of me?" Alina shook his hand briefly, her discomfort evident. "I'm afraid not." Lucas's smile tightened. "A shame, though I suspect by morning you'll never forget my name." Victor caught the predatory gleam in Lucas's eyes and felt a surprising surge of protectiveness. "I believe Ms. Moreno," Alina supplied. "Alina Moreno." "Ms. Moreno was engaged in a private conversation," Victor finished. Lucas raised an eyebrow, looking between them with growing interest. "My apology for interrupting. Though I should warn you, Victor, I've already placed my bid on this particular item. Quite generous, if I do say so." The casual dehumanization in Lucas's words made Alina flinch visibly. "If you'll excuse me," she said quietly, slipping away from both men. Lucas watched her go with a wolfish smile. Delightful, isn't she? So authentic, so innocent, unlike the usual merchandise. "Is there something you want, Lucas?" Victor asked coldly. Lucas stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I want what I always want, to see the mighty Victor Laurent knocked from his pedestal. Imagine the headlines if someone discovered the righteous CEO of Laurent Technologies bidding on virgins at underground auctions." "I'm not bidding," Victor stated flatly. "No? Then why are you here?" Lucas's smile widened. "Just curious, I'm sure." "Well, enjoy your curiosity." "I'll enjoy her." As Lucas walked away, Victor found himself clenching his jaw. The interaction left a bitter taste that his expensive whiskey couldn't wash away. He scanned the room, locating Alina again. She stood beside an older gentleman who leaned too close, his hand lingering on her bare arm. Her smile remained fixed, but her eyes revealed the toll of each interaction. A chime sounded, drawing everyone's attention to the center of the room where a woman in an elegant black dress announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, the auction will commence in 5 minutes. Please take your seats and prepare your devices for bidding." Guests moved toward arranged seating, opening specialized apps on their phones. Victor found himself following, taking a seat at the back of the room. He told himself he was only staying to observe, a study in human behavior and market dynamics. Nothing more. The first few listings passed quickly. Young women paraded before the crowd, described in terms better suited to luxury goods than human beings. Bids rose and fell, transactions completed with the cold efficiency of stock trades. Then Alina was announced, listing 22, first-time offering. She walked to the center of the room, eyes downcast, fists clenched at her sides. "Opening bid starts at $200,000, the announcer stated. "Bidding is now open." Numbers flashed on a discrete screen. $210,000, $230,000. $250,000. Victor watched Alina's face, seeing not relief at the rising value, but increasing dread. Each higher number represented not freedom, but a heavier obligation. $375,000 flashed on the screen from user LV78. Lucas Varela, born 1978. Lucas caught Victor's eye across the room, raising his glass in mock salute. $375,000 going once. Something broke open inside Victor, a dam holding back emotions he'd buried since childhood. He saw not just Alina before him, but his own mother, who had worked 3 jobs to pay for his education, who had sacrificed everything for him until illness took her while he was too busy building his empire to visit her deathbed. $375,000 going twice. What would you do if you saw someone making this kind of sacrifice? Would you turn away or step in? Drop a red heart in the comments if you believe in unexpected kindness that changes lives. Victor raised his phone, finger hovering over the bid button. He hadn't come to participate. He had built his fortune on calculated decisions, not emotional impulses. Sold to $1 million. Victor's voice cut through the room as his bid appeared on screen. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Alina's head snapped up, her eyes finding his in disbelief. Lucas's smile vanished, replaced by cold fury. $1 million, the announcer repeated, clearly flustered by the dramatic jump. Going once, going twice, sold to VL86. The room erupted in murmurs as Victor stood, straightening his jacket with the same composure he displayed in boardroom takeovers. But inside, a storm had awakened, one he couldn't explain or control. Alina stood frozen, her expression a complex mixture of relief, fear, and confusion as the announcer guided her toward the buyer who had just purchased her most precious possession for a sum that would save her mother's life. The private viewing room felt like a cage to Alina despite its luxurious furnishings. Plush velvet chairs and dim lighting created an atmosphere of intimacy that made her skin crawl. When the door opened to reveal Victor Laurent, her heart raced with contradictory emotions. Relief that it wasn't Lucas Varela, terror at what would happen next, and confusion about why this powerful man had paid such an astronomical sum. Victor closed the door behind him but remained standing near it, maintaining a respectful distance. "We're not staying here," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. "My car is waiting outside." Alina wrapped her arms around herself. "Where are we going?" "My office. To talk." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. "I've already transferred half the agreed amount to the account you provided when you registered. Check your confirmation." Stunned, Alina pulled out her phone. The notification confirmed it. $500,000 had been deposited, half her mother's chance at life, already secured. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. "We can discuss that somewhere more private." Victor opened the door, gesturing for her to precede him. "Unless you prefer to stay here?" The hallway outside was empty save for a discreet security guard who didn't meet their eyes. Victor guided her through a back exit, away from the main room where other transactions were still concluding. His black Bentley waited at the curb, driver standing at attention. The ride passed in silence. Alina pressed against the door, creating as much space between them as possible. Victor made no attempt to close that distance, his attention seemingly focused on the city lights beyond the window. Laurent Technologies occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown. At this late hour, the building stood mostly dark except for the penthouse level where Victor's private office took up half a floor. The elevator required his fingerprint to access it. The office that greeted them was as imposing as the man himself. Walls of glass overlooking Manhattan, minimalist furniture in black and chrome, not a single personal photo or memento visible. The only unexpected element was a display case containing antique pocket watches, each one meticulously maintained behind glass. "Would you like something to drink? Water? Coffee?" Victor asked, removing his jacket and hanging it with practiced precision. "Water, please." Alina's voice sounded small in the vast space. He brought her a glass, then indicated a seating area away from his desk. 2 chairs facing each other across a low table. When they sat, he left enough distance that she began to relax marginally. "Your mother is ill," he stated. Not a question. Alina nodded. "Cancer. Stage 4. The doctors gave her 3 months without an experimental treatment. The treatment costs more than you could earn honestly," Victor finished for her. "Yes." She met his gaze directly. "Judge me if you want, but I've exhausted every other option." "I'm not judging you." Something flashed across Victor's face, a crack in his perfect composure. "My mother died of cancer when I was 22. The revelation hung in the air between them. Victor stood abruptly, moving to the wall of windows. I was building my first company, too busy to visit her in the hospital as often as I should have. His voice remained even, but his reflection in the glass betrayed tension in his jaw. The day she died, I was closing an acquisition deal. I got to the hospital 2 hours too late. Alina set her water glass down. "I'm sorry." Victor turned. "How old is your mother?" 45. Mine was 46. He gestured toward the watch collection. Those were hers. She collected them while working as a house cleaner for wealthy families who would sometimes pay her with their discarded possessions instead of actual money. Alina stood, drawn to the collection despite herself. Each timepiece looked valuable, history captured in gold and silver. She sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She was. Victor moved beside her, careful to maintain distance. "And now you're selling yourself to save yours." Alina's shoulders stiffened. "I'm doing what's necessary. There are always other options." Victor's voice had softened imperceptibly. "Not for people like me." "People like you?" "People without power or connections or millions in their bank accounts." The words emerged more bitterly than she intended. Victor studied her for a long moment. "The money is yours regardless. I'll transfer the rest of the night." Before Alina could respond, Victor's phone chimed with an incoming message. His expression hardened as he read it. "Lucas," he explained, setting the phone down. "He's threatening to leak my participation in tonight's auction to the press." "Would that damage you?" Alina asked. Loron Technologies has built its reputation on ethical business practices. Being connected to an auction like tonight's would be problematic. Alina wrapped her arms around herself again. "I understand if you want to back out. Half the money is already enough to—" "I don't back out of agreements," Victor interrupted. "Lucas Varela has been trying to undermine me for years. This is just his latest attempt." Alina's phone rang, breaking the tension. The hospital's number flashed on her screen, sending ice through her veins. "I need to take this," she said, moving away for privacy. Victor watched her face transform during the brief call. Fear, then determination, then resignation washing over her features in rapid succession. "My mother's taken a turn," she said after hanging up. "The doctor says if we're going to start the treatment, it needs to be within the next 48 hours or it may be too late." "I'll have the rest of the money transferred immediately," Victor said, already reaching for his phone. "And I'll honor my part of the arrangement." Alina's voice was steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. Victor paused. "That's not necessary." "It is to me." She lifted her chin. "I don't take charity, Mr. Loron. I made a deal." "Victor," he corrected automatically, "and this isn't charity." "Then what is it?" she challenged. The question seemed to catch him off guard. He looked toward the watch collection, then back to her. "A chance to do something my money usually can't buy." When she looked confused, he added, "Make a difference that matters." The sincerity in his voice struck Alina unexpectedly. She prepared herself for cruelty, for humiliation, even for gentleness that masked selfish desires. But not for this. Not for genuine humanity from a man the business world called the Ice King. "I should go," she said softly. "My mother needs me." Of course. My driver will take you. Victor moved to his desk, typing rapidly on his computer. The full payment has been transferred. No conditions attached. Alina felt dizzy with relief and confusion. Thank you isn't enough, but... Use it to save her, Victor said simply. That's thanks enough. When she reached the door, Victor spoke again. The arrangement still stands if you want it to. Not tonight, but once your mother is stable. My penthouse. Tomorrow night. Alina turned, studying him. Why? A deal is a deal, he said, though something in his eyes suggested there was more to it. I'll be there, she replied, refusing to be indebted even as conflict roiled inside her. As the elevator doors closed between them, Alina leaned against the wall, tears finally breaking free. $1 million would save her mother, but tonight had shown her something she hadn't expected. That behind the cold, calculating demeanor of Victor Laurent was a man capable of surprising gentleness, a man haunted by his own past, perhaps seeking redemption through her. Tomorrow night, she would fulfill her obligation, her half of the bargain, no matter that something had shifted inside her when he spoke of his mother, no matter that his touch, when he shook her hand goodbye, had lingered warm against her skin, no matter that she had glimpsed vulnerability in a man everyone believed had none. Sometimes our past shapes our decisions in unexpected ways, pushing us toward choices we never imagined making. The lines between right and wrong blur when survival is at stake. Has someone's painful history ever helped them understand yours? Comment healing. If you believe people can change, even those who seem the coldest, are second chances real or just wishful thinking? In her small apartment, Alina packed an overnight bag for the hospital, her hands moving mechanically while her mind remained in that glass office overlooking the city. The money would save her mother. Tomorrow would fulfill her debt. These certainties should have brought relief, but instead, a new emotion crept into her heart, a tenderness for a man who had everything yet seemed to have nothing at all. Her phone pinged with a message from an unknown number. The car will collect you at 8 p.m. tomorrow. VL. Alina set the phone down and continued packing, pushing away the confusing warmth that filled her chest whenever she thought of steel-gray eyes that had momentarily softened when speaking of a mother long gone. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Tonight was for Rosa, for gratitude, for hope. Yet as she zipped her bag closed, Alina couldn't stop herself from wondering what awaited her in Victor Laurent's carefully constructed world, and why the thought of entering it no longer filled her only with dread. Night fell over the city as Alina stood outside Victor Laurent's luxury building. The doorman nodded respectfully as she entered, having been instructed to expect her. The elevator ascended silently to the penthouse floor, each passing number on the display increasing the heaviness in her chest. 24 hours had transformed her life. Her mother now rested in a private hospital room, receiving the first round of the experimental treatment that might save her life. The doctor's guarded optimism had brought the first genuine smile to Rosa's face in months. "You're an angel," her mother had whispered, squeezing her hand. "How did you manage this miracle?" Alina had fabricated a story about an anonymous benefactor from the restaurant where she worked. The lie tasted bitter, but the alternative, telling her mother the truth, was unthinkable. The elevator doors opened directly into Victor's penthouse. Unlike his office with its sterile modernity, his home contained unexpected warmth, leather-bound books lining shelves, rich wooden furniture, and the same collection of antique watches, here displayed more prominently in a custom cabinet. Victor stood by the windows, Manhattan spread below him like a carpet of stars. He wore a simple black sweater rather than his usual suit, making him appear almost approachable. "You came," he said, turning to face her. "I honor my agreements." Alina remained near the elevator, her overnight bag clutched in white-knuckled fingers. "How is your mother?" The genuine concern in his voice caught her off guard. "The doctors are hopeful. The treatment, it's more than I ever could have provided for her." Victor nodded, maintaining his distance as if sensing her anxiety. "Would you like something to drink?" "No, thank you." Alina took a deep breath. "I'm ready to fulfill my part of our arrangement." Victor's expression shifted subtly. "There's something we need to discuss first." He gestured toward the sitting area. "Please." Reluctantly, Alina placed her bag down and perched on the edge of a leather chair, her posture rigid with tension. "I received this today," Victor said, sliding a tablet across the coffee table. Alina glanced down at the screen. It displayed a news article draft with a headline, "Tech Billionaire Victor Loron Exposed. Secret Virgin Auction Scandal." "Lucas Varela," Victor explained. "He's threatening to release this tomorrow, unless I sell him my stake in a medical research company we both invested in. A company that, ironically, developed the treatment your mother is receiving." "He knows about me?" Alina felt ice spreading through her veins. "He does, though he's been careful to keep your identity anonymous in the article. For now, what will you do?" Victor's eyes met hers. "That depends partly on you." Before Alina could respond, the elevator chimed. Victor's expression hardened into the cold mask she had first encountered. That would be Lucas. Right on schedule. He stood. "I apologize for not warning you." This confrontation was inevitable. The elevator doors opened to reveal Lucas Varela, impeccably dressed and wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The smile faltered momentarily when he spotted Alina. "Victor, you didn't mention we'd have company." Lucas's gaze traveled over Alina with undisguised interest. "The virgin sacrifice. How delightful." "Ms. Moreno is here at my invitation," Victor replied coldly. "You, however, are not." Lucas chuckled, strolling into the penthouse as if he owned it. "Come now. I thought we could discuss our little business matter face to face. More personal that way." He turned to Alina. "Did he tell you about our arrangement? How your sordid little transaction is about to become headline news." Alina stood, lifting her chin despite the fear coursing through her. "Mr. Loron informed me of your threats." "Yes." "Threats? I prefer to think of it as leverage." Lucas pulled out his phone. "One call, and tomorrow morning, the world knows that the great Victor Loron buys virgins at underground auctions." Victor remained unnervingly calm. "And then what, Lucas?" "You damage my reputation temporarily. I lose some stock value, and within 6 months it's forgotten. Meanwhile, you expose yourself as a participant in the same auction." "Ah, but I'm not the one with a pristine public image to protect, am I?" Lucas's smile widened. "Besides, I was merely a spectator. You were a buyer." He glanced at Alina. "And such an expensive purchase." "What do you want?" Alina demanded, her patience fraying. "Not from you, my dear. Though I must say, Victor's taste is impeccable if unexpected." Lucas turned back to Victor. "I want Helix Pharmaceuticals. Your entire stake. Sign it over tonight, and this story disappears." Victor walked to his desk and opened a drawer, removing a folder. "You've wanted Helix since we first invested." "Why?" "Their cancer treatment protocol will revolutionize medicine. The profits will be substantial." Alina's breath caught. "The treatment my mother is receiving." Lucas's eyebrows rose. "Ah, now I understand Victor's unusual interest. How touching." Victor placed a folder on the coffee table. "The transfer documents for my stake in Helix. 30% ownership." Lucas didn't bother hiding his triumph as he reached for the papers. "I knew you'd be reasonable." "Before you sign," Victor said, his voice dangerously quiet, "you should know what you're actually buying." Lucas paused, pen hovering over the signature line. "Helix's treatment protocol works," Victor continued, "but their most recent trials revealed a side effect they've kept hidden: heart complications in 20% of patients. Fatal complications." The color drained from Alina's face. "My mother—" "Your mother is receiving the modified protocol," Victor assured her. "The one without the side effect. But the original protocol is what's about to be approved by the FDA. Once that approval comes through, the lawsuits will follow. Lucas's eyes narrowed. You're lying. Page for the report. The data is quite clear. Victor's expression remained impassive. Sign if you want. Take both the company and the headlines. I'm sure one will offset the other. Lucas flipped frantically through the papers, his confidence crumbling as he read. You knew about this all along. I did. Victor took the pen from Lucas's slack fingers, which is why I've been working with their research team on the modified protocol, the one that actually works without killing the patients. In one fluid motion, Victor tore the transfer documents in half. There will be no deal, Lucas, and no story. Because if you release it, I'll ensure the world knows you tried to acquire a company with fatally flawed treatments for profit. Lucas's face contorted with rage. This isn't over, Laurent. It is. Victor moved to the elevator, pressing the call button. And Ms. Moreno's mother will continue receiving the modified treatment regardless of your actions. I've made certain of that. When the elevator arrived, Lucas stepped in, his composure shattered. You think you won, but people like you don't get happy endings, Victor. We both know that. As the doors closed on Lucas's bitter face, silence fell over the penthouse. Alina stood frozen, trying to process everything she'd just witnessed. Was that true? About the treatment? She finally asked. The side effects? Yes. The modified protocol? Also yes. Victor turned to face her. Your mother is receiving the safe version. I made sure of it before approving her case. Why didn't you tell me? You had enough to worry about. Victor moved to the watch cabinet, opening it carefully. None of this changes our arrangement. Alina took a deep breath. I'm still willing to honor my part. Victor selected a watch in the cabinet, a delicate women's timepiece with a mother-of-pearl face. He held it toward the light, examining it with unexpected tenderness. This was my mother's favorite, a gift from my father before he left us. He turned to Alina. She wore it every day until she became too ill. It's beautiful, Alina said softly, unsure where this was leading. She taught me that true value isn't in what something costs, but in what it means. Victor closed the cabinet. What Lucas failed to understand is that something should never have a price tag. Victor moved to his desk, removing an envelope. He extended it toward Alina. What's this? She asked. A deed to a small apartment near your mother's hospital. It's yours, and a fund for your brother's education, if he chooses to use it. Alina stared at the envelope without taking it. I don't understand. Our arrangement is concluded. Alina, you owe me nothing. But the money was given freely, Victor finished for her. Consider it an investment in the person you'll become when you're not trapped by circumstances. Alina shook her head in disbelief. Why would you do this? Because 15 years ago, someone should have done it for me and my mother. Victor placed the envelope on the table between them. The cycle ends here. Alina's legs weakened as the magnitude of what he was offering washed over her. Not just money, but freedom. Not just treatment for her mother, but a future unshackled from desperation. I don't know what to say. Tears pooled in her eyes. You don't need to say anything. For the first time since she'd met him, Victor Laurent smiled, a small, genuine expression that transformed his face. Just promise me you'll use this chance well. 2 months later, Rosa Moreno sat in the garden of the rehabilitation center, color returning to her cheeks as she worked on a small embroidery project. The doctors had confirmed what seemed impossible just weeks earlier. The cancer was responding to treatment, receding steadily with each scan. Alina watched her mother from the pathway, a weight lifting from her shoulders that she had carried for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand straight. Ms. Moreno. She turned to find Victor Laurent standing a respectful distance away, more casually dressed than she had ever seen him, in jeans and a simple button-down shirt. Mr. Laurent, she acknowledged. surprised by the flutter in her chest at the sight of him. "Victor," he corrected gently. "I was here for a board meeting. The center is partially funded by my foundation." "Of course it is," Alina said with a small smile. "My mother is doing well. I'm glad to hear it." He glanced toward Rosa, who was watching their interaction with undisguised curiosity. "How are your classes?" Alina had enrolled in nursing school, inspired by the care her mother had received. "Challenging, but good. Thank you for the recommendation letter." An awkward silence fell between them. Two people connected by an extraordinary circumstance, still finding their footing in ordinary interaction. "Would you like to meet her?" Alina asked suddenly. "My mother?" Something softened in Victor's expression. "I would be honored." As they walked toward Rosa together, Victor maintained a respectful distance, but something had fundamentally shifted between them. The man who had once seemed unreachable now walked beside her as an equal, his formidable walls beginning to crumble in the wake of unexpected connection. Their story hadn't ended that night in his penthouse. Perhaps Alina thought it had only begun. This story shows that even in our darkest moments, unexpected light can find us. Have you ever experienced a moment that left you speechless? Comment "speechless" and share your story below. Would you have done what Victor did, or would you have taken what was offered? I spent over 180 hours researching psychology of redemption and interviewing people who experienced life-changing acts of kindness to bring authenticity to this conclusion. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Soul Thread Stories by T for more powerful stories that will leave you thinking long after they end. Every subscription fuels the creation of more stories that reveal the extraordinary capacity of the human heart.